There's a great agenda, and I think that you're going to enjoy what you're going to see today. As I said, please welcome to the Store Support Center here at the Home Depot. And on that note, I'd like to introduce James Franklin, and he will take us and kick us off this morning. James?
Thank you, Ray. Really appreciate it. And thank you to Home Depot for having us here. They've been very gracious around the Tech Ed series and in many ways. So opening up their home to us, letting us come in, give us a great space and some great food and drinks. So thank you for that, especially when today's an important day for them because of all of the assistance that they provide for disaster relief. Their attention is actually focused in the Gulf right now, but they're still making time for us. So it truly is a blessing. Thank you. We have several topics that we're going to cover today, and I'm not going to walk you through all these, but I'm going to say at a general level what we're trying to accomplish is just make you aware of the options that you might have when it comes to nonprofit applications. It's a complicated world when you start trying to figure out what the right applications are for the different aspects of your mission and your business. And so this is to give you some baseline knowledge so that you might have a different lens as you're trying to make those decisions. And if you think about the different areas of your operation, it usually falls into these types of buckets, right? You have a mission that involves case management or program management, involves putting events on, working directly with your clients and processing them into your organization, obviously understanding who your contact points are in the organizations that you deal with. So all of these different applications, all of these different functions exist within your organization. Now what typically happens in a nonprofit is every single one of these systems tends to be different. Not always, but in many organizations they're different. In our organization, a lot of these are different. So what ends up happening is when I have a volunteer, and that volunteer decides to give us some money, then I take that volunteer information, then I go over to my donor system and I enter that donor information. And then when that donor decides they want to attend an event, then I go enter that same information into my event system. And then when I'm running a new program and I want to communicate with that donor, volunteer, and person who attended my event, I usually go to some other contact management system and enter that same information there. So this is typical, or at least I've seen a lot, and that causes certain challenges, right? And then the second thing that happens is you have to decide what kind of application you're going to have in your environment, and there tends to be a few different types. First is probably the easiest to understand. I need something, I'm going to go buy it. I'm going to go buy it, it's going to be in a box. It's going to have shrink wrap plastic around it. I'm going to rip it open. I'm going to take a CD out. And I'm going to install it, which is great. That's the way software was done for a really long time. Now the challenges with that, or at least what we hear from the nonprofits, is number one, there's a tendency not to invest as much time as you should in requirements gathering. And what that means is understanding how does my organization work? What makes my mission unique? How do we deliver on that mission? And really understand what those are, and then map that towards the software. And so if you buy software, shrink wrap, with the CD case, and you've already done the work to say all the things that I need exist within this software, then you're great. You've done a very, very good job. There's other aspects of installed software. You know, you need to buy the server, you need to install it, support it, those sort of things. But most nonprofits, most corporations don't do that as well as they should. So it's just too easy to go out and buy it. Someone said some good things about it, I bought it, I'm off to the races. The other thing is, if it doesn't meet your needs, if you want to change something, that can be pretty difficult sometimes with packaged software. As a matter of fact, the recommendation usually is don't try to change it, because what can end up happening is you're going to spend a lot of time and money, and it's going to increase your support costs to make those changes. And then if you make too many changes, you're going to be actually off what's called the migration path, the upgrade path. So you need to be real careful about that. In some cases, it's better to change the way you do things in order to fit how the software does. But that's a really big decision if you're going to do that. So that's the challenge with shrink wrap software. It's not a bad choice. It's just it has some challenges in it. Then the next one is people say, well, I don't know what the right package is, or I don't have the money to go buy it. So every single one of us uses a lot of Excel spreadsheets, I'm sure. I use a lot of Excel spreadsheets. Even if I have a package that does what I would want it to do, I put the data, I take it out in an Excel spreadsheet because I love my spreadsheets. But that has some challenges as well, of course. You know, once the data is out of the system and you start making changes, it might be kind of hard to get it back into the system. The problem I have is I have this naming convention where I put little V's on the end, and I'm V1 or I'm V28. And then I can't remember, is V28 the current one, or is there a V29 somewhere? So there's challenges with it. But it's good, right? And we've grown accustomed to it. But it's not a system, right? It's a way to work as an individual in order to get what you need. It's not really a way to run an organization, or not to. And then the last one, some people say, well, I don't want a spreadsheet approach anymore. There's no package out there that's going to work for me, so I'm going to build something. And I would say this is the most fraught with risk. And I would say almost always I wouldn't do this. There's exceptions, of course, but I've been in professional consulting for most of my career, about 20 years. I've done it for Accenture and HP. I'll give you a story. Very early on in my career, I worked for a major consulting company that was doing a huge migration between two public utility companies. And the idea was we were going to revolutionize the way public utilities worked. And we were going to do it through the concepts of activity-based management and costing. And there was a partner I worked for who wrote a book, very good book, highly recommend that you read it. And it talked all about revolutionizing public utilities. So it's a joke, it's a dry read. So we convinced this utility to spend $50 million to build this system that was going to change the way they did business. So we went in, we did all this stuff. We used Oracle Financials as the base product. We did $48 million worth of changes probably. And then we got to the end and we said, you know, this project took 5 years. And we're 4 years into it, and the technology's actually changed, and your requirements have actually changed. So we need to change the product, but since this technology is so old, we can't really change this product. We need to build a new product. So it was quite complete throwaway. So that's a good story about custom databases. Not all are like that. I'm just saying it's very risky. And there may be some cases where your needs are so unique and so special and so worthy of investment that you should build this custom database. But just make sure you don't end up like that public utility that said we were so special and it cost them. And the other challenges with it is you got to support it, right? So if you build it, the only person that knows how to support that probably was the person that built it. That means you're going to have a very good relationship with those people forever. Or you're going to have to train somebody in your organization to have it, right? And you're going to make sure that there's two of them, because if one leaves, you got real problems. So it's a big deal. It's a big undertaking. So questions on choices? There are other choices out there? Does this seem to be what you guys experience in your environment? Okay. So then, there's another type of platform. And I wouldn't say that this isn't a recommendation. This is an option. A lot of people are using this option, and we're going to spend today telling you why people are using this option. But at the end of the day, whether you go with Salesforce, whether you go with Spreadsheets, whatever it is you do, we're not trying to tell you what direction. Namely, because we don't know what your circumstances are, right? So what we're trying to do in this session is just tell you what the options are, and just tell you what some other nonprofits have done so that you can glean intelligence from that may be applicable to your environment. So with that said, the nice thing about Salesforce is it's a cloud-based application. We are very encouraged with cloud-based applications, and the reason why is the typical customer that we serve tends to underinvest in equipment because they don't have the money to invest in equipment, and tends to underinvest in the upkeep of their IT environment. So the nice thing about a cloud environment is you don't have to worry about servers. You typically don't have to worry about support and maintenance of that environment. So in this case, Salesforce does it for you. The other nice thing about it is the Salesforce Foundation gives you 10 free licenses. So if you're a 501c3 that qualifies, pretty much all of you will qualify. Giving you the 10 free license is kind of like giving you the free server, giving you free support, giving you free energy and connection, because you would have to charge for that in a for-profit world. And up to 10 people, you don't have to pay anything. And then the 11th and on, I believe, is $350 a year. Yeah. So if you have a whole lot of users, it can get really expensive really quick. So that's one reason why it's not appropriate for everybody. And there's different license models that kind of gets around that, but just to give you an idea of kind of the sweet spot for this, if it's 10 and under, then it's a very compelling platform. And then the other thing is based upon the relationship that we developed with IT Savvy, and I'll introduce Joe in a minute, is we're getting really phenomenal rates. So there are a couple organizations that are very philanthropic. They're for-profit companies, but because of their love of their community, they're giving us rates that are much lower than we can get anywhere else. Certainly lower than in the for-profit arena, and actually lower than even if we hire the people ourselves. So it's a blessing that we have resources like IT Savvy. So pull all that together, and we're doing projects that are a pretty small amount comparatively. I just went into, I went into 100 Black Men of Atlanta, and they said, they showed me some things. I said, if you considered Salesforce, they're like, oh, I hate Salesforce. Please don't bring up Salesforce. I said, why do you hate Salesforce? And they said, well, our board was ramming it down our throats and said you have to use Salesforce. We spent 2 summers putting all of our data in there, and then nothing happened. It's in there, now what? They said, it's just a database. And I said, yeah, I understand that. And I said, what hasn't happened is you didn't do the requirements, and you haven't really designed the forms and the reports that are going to match how you need to execute against your mission. And they said, that's exactly right, exactly right. And then I said, but even so, we can't afford it. I said, why not? They said, because Salesforce came in and said it'll cost at least $100,000 to implement this. So our typical implementation fees range from anywhere from $6,000 up to $15,000, unless you want a lot, and then it could be even bigger. I mean, the sky's the limit, right? But our job will try to be to constrain the scope as much as possible to keep the project small. So it can be very affordable. The other thing is it's a flexible solution, meaning these guys will kill me for saying this analogy, but to me it's kind of like Access, right? It's built upon a platform that Coca-Cola and GE and all the big guys in town. I know. But for us laymen, it's has some similarities because it's on this platform that allows that's very robust and can meet large organizations and small. But it also gives you the tools that you need to design your object model, which is all the entities that you need. So I need a sponsor, I need a volunteer. That volunteer has a whole bunch of information I want to collect about it, so those are like fields. And then I want to design a form that allows me to enter that information that's going to get stored in this object model. And then I want to have reports that I can run that's going to pull that data out, right? So, I don't like Access, right? But it's rather flexible. And the nice thing about it is if you have a desire and a technical aptitude, we can teach you how to do it yourself. So we'll set it up for you, and then you can make your own reports. You can make your own forms if you have the desire to do so. And the last thing is access, and this may actually be one of the key benefits. Right now, if I want to go into QuickBooks, I have to connect to my network. If I'm out of the office, I've got to connect to my network, which could be a challenge at times, right? So it's just technology, right? And then once I'm connected in, then I need to go into my system. And we only have 3 licenses, but we have 4 people that access it. So I have to see if everybody's on, right? And then if there's a problem, if I can't print or something, I've got to call the help desk and figure that out. So the difference with a cloud-based application is it's accessed through your web browser. So you don't have those issues. If your web browser's not working, you can't get in. If your web browser is working, you have an internet connection, you can get it, as long as their servers are up and running. And they're doing something like 500 million transactions a day. Is that right? 250 million? Yeah, somewhere in there. So they got some pretty hefty resources behind this. So it's just easier to use it and access it. And so if you're out in the field, it becomes a real benefit, just because it's simple. And the technology around accessing it is less complicated. Any questions on that? Okay. So I would like to introduce Michelle. She is the recipient of one of our Salesforce projects, and I think she's going to have some great information to share with us.
Thank you, James, and I'd like to commend everybody that has registered and decided to look into doing some online data management, because it shows that you care about your data, that you care about the future of your organization. I'm the CE and Distance Learning Coordinator for Sewega AHEC. Usually the first question that we get is, what is Sewega AHEC? Sewega AHEC stands for Southwest Georgia Area Health Education Center. When you look on the map, you'll see that the bottom left-hand corner that's shaded in green is our 38 county service area. We're below the mat line. Our office is in the center of that in Albany, Georgia. We're also part of, we are a 501c3 not-for-profit independent organization, but we are connected within the Georgia statewide area AHEC network. So you can see how if you build something that can be replicated to other sister organizations across the state or in other states, in theory, how you could help develop that online data management tool for others. Our mission, of course, we're community-driven, not-for-profit, 501c3. We've been in existence for over 20 years. Our main mission is to increase the number of healthcare professionals in our 38 county service area. If you look at that bottom corner of the state, a large portion of our counties that are in that area are rural and underserved. You may say, well, how did you get to know anything about Salesforce? What made you think that you were going to be able to use it? You would have to go back about a little over a year ago. Back in February of 2011, we had the opportunity to apply for the TechBridge Technology Innovation Award. And that's where, we thought as an organization, how can we innovatively embrace technology and make us be more efficient, make us be more productive and more viable and sustainable. So back in February 2011, we applied. I think in the beginning of April, we were notified we were one of the 3 finalists. And then I think mid-April, late April, we came, all the 3 finalists came and did presentations over in the Accenture building. And then all the finalists were invited to come back in May for the digital ball at TechBridge and Accenture and a lot of other sponsors put on, where they announced that we actually won the award. So May 2007, we were on cloud 9. We were like, yes, we have this opportunity. An organization is looking outside of the metropolitan area, and they're really going to invest in us and how we can make our business better, how we can provide the resources to our consumers or customers or students or clients, whatever that you want to call it, how we can manage that data a little bit better. This is of course our fearless leader, Pam Reynolds. She has been with AHEC for over 20 years. This was taken at the digital ball. I think that was Kevin Campbell, which is also with the Accenture, that was presenting us with the award. She's been instrumental in healthcare in Southwest Georgia for over 20 years. I also want to let you know that down at the bottom of the slide, you'll see a website. And if you go to that website, if you're interested in trying to apply for the award like we did, you may have some other technology issues that you're wanting to address in your organization. If you think outside of the box whenever you're thinking about trying to embrace technology, if you go to that website, it'll tell you to check back on certain deadlines so that you can apply like we did. We've been really excited for this process. Basically, after we won the award from August to October, we had all kind of meetings. We had internal meetings of trying to get everybody on the same page within our organization. We had meetings where Accenture sent Dana Poe and Jackie to come down and have us put on paper, how do you do your job? And we basically started with a blank sheet of paper. And they asked us questions, okay? You know, who are your customers? You know, how do you get them? Are you getting them through email, through fax, through face-to-face, and trying to integrate all the ways of how we do our business. And you'll hear several times probably during this presentation about having to spend time on the requirements. You really have to spend that time on the requirements because that's the stage where you're building the skeleton of where the future of your company is going to go. So be sure that you realize that going in, that you're going to have that requirement phase. We actually, in October through December of last year, our product was, I say semi-live, and what I mean by that is we were able to go in and play with it. We had some data that mock data that was in there. We were going in there trying to see if we could do reports. We were trying to see if we could put contacts in, trying to use the different modules. Actually, what started especially for me on the CE side, January 1st of 2012 is whenever my CE portion, we had to have a deadline date of when are you going to stop using the old stuff and when are you going to put it into the new stuff. It's kind of scary, you know, I'll be honest with you, but I chose, I'll take January 1st. So January 1st on anything related to CE and some other aspects of the organization is going to go into the Salesforce model. You may hear me say ADAM, that's what we call it, for AHEC Data Management System, so you have to forgive me because I'm just used to calling it ADAM like a person in our office. Then from January through February 2012 this year, they started rolling out different phases. When they look at your organization, there'll be certain things that you want done first, and then things that can come on later. The things that come on first are those bread and butter things. Those things that you know that you gotta have. Like for us, it was continuing ed. It was clinical training. You would never want the whole system to go live all at once because it would be so overwhelming for your organization. It would just be, you know, defeating the purpose of it because your staff would just go, well, you know, there's no way that I could do all that. It's got to be piecemealed out to you. But anyway, that's where we won that. Bringing it all together. This is, of course, what the mission that I just mentioned. You may say, what are all the things that your organization does? What you got to think of is all the different aspects. You know, we're all not-for-profits, and we all do a lot of different things. And there's probably a lot of different activities that you're doing that you're not capturing any data on. Okay? But if you look at SWIGA AHEC, we have everything from healthcare career presentations, career counseling, student clinical rotations, CE, grant management products. Our population of who we serve, you know, we always say in Southwest Georgia, if you're interested in healthcare and you got a pulse, you're probably going to be our customer sometime or another. Either we're going to provide you public education related to health-related issues, or we're going to provide your children, maybe it's, you know, through healthcare career counseling, or going and doing presentations. If you're a healthcare professional, I'm chasing you down because I want to make sure that I'm giving you the CE that you need and being able to track. Also, outside of our 38 county service area, also foundations and organizations, your grantors, funders, all of these people play a vital role in our organization. And you may say, well, that's all fine and good, but what about some numbers? Because you know, usually people say, okay, well, is your organization dealing with 100 people, or 200 people, or 1,000 people? Whenever I pulled back before I left the office, since 1982, let's see, I have a number. Well, I'm sorry, for 10 years, from 1991 to 2010, we reached almost 91,000 students, where we went to high schools or middle schools or college students, where we went in and we told them about different healthcare professions that are out there. We did over 13,000 rotations. A rotation is where a student comes to us and says, I want to come to your area and I want to see a primary care doc, or I want to do a rotation with a nurse practitioner. I want to learn what they're doing. I want to get the academic credit or any kind of shadowing. We've helped close to 8,000 students come through and do those 13,000 rotations. When you think about the backside of that, on part of what we do, And as not-for-profits, you're probably thinking the same thing. Just those numbers, there's a lot of extra work on the other side of what we do. And part of what we do on the other side of the students are, we're dealing with those preceptors. You know, we make those connections. I'm going to send it to this student to hospital A, and then I find a preceptor for that student. For all those students, for the number of hours that our community-based volunteer clinical faculty over that period of time has been over 1.4 million hours. So if you think about that, it is really broad enough to be able to probably fit most of what your not-for-profit needs would be. Let's see. Oh, and for CE, CE is my bread and butter, and that's why I have a job. My title is CE coordinator. Since 1981, we have had 38,000 attendees at events. So if you think about in your scope of practice, maybe some of your numbers in your organization hit one of those aspects. You may say, where are we at today in it? Our initial project has turned into the live platform. We have been using it. I will tell you, whenever you're going into this process, there's time, there's a learning curve. Anything new is going to be learned. You know, you're going to have those aspects. Also, our system has, in the process of being replicated to other AHECs across the state, so they're not having to start from ground zero with that blank sheet of paper. They're taking what we developed, tweaking it just a little bit, or customizing it just a little bit specific for their needs. And we're in the process of evaluating and sharing our lessons learned with other Georgia AHECs and with not-for-profits like yourself. When you get to the meat of what our system, what Adam does, there's sort of like little modules or little, it's almost like a grocery store pick list of things that you'll have available to you probably. One, of course, is contacts. Think of contacts. Could be students, it could be clients, it could be constituents, whoever the people are, okay? And you got to think across the board, not just, you know, that includes who your customers are, but it also includes your board, it includes your staff, it includes everybody that you come in contact with. So the days of writing down somebody's name on a Post-it and trying to keep that Post-it is really could be over, because once you put it into the Salesforce, it's there. And as long as you have internet access, you can go to it and pull their information up from anywhere. You have organizations, enhancement requests. Those are the things that whenever you need to have a question about something or a suggestion about something, or it's all, I call it my little please button. Can somebody please tell me something about this? Continuing ed, of course, is the one that I have dealt the most with. It handles all of the event planning, everything from being able to attach files to it, connecting the speakers, connecting the planning team members, collecting all the who registers for the program, being able to decide, or did they online register, or did they mail it in, or you know, and it also helps us, what I've noticed with the C part, a lot of times we were only keying in those attendees that actually attended an event. But if you think about it, you know, you always, even with this event, I'm sure we have probably 2 or 3 people that didn't show up. This system helps us also track those of who registered for something but didn't attend, so they're still in the database, so you can reach back out to them, say you have slides that you want to share with them, or you want to touch bases with them with an archive program. It really helps with that. We also have, like on the clinical training side, rotation requests, farm worker program, housing assignments. These are really important for the healthcare professionals, or the future healthcare professionals for our 38 county service area, because being in Southwest Georgia, we don't have direct access to a lot of the medical schools that are out there. So we believe that to recruit those healthcare professionals for the future, we need to bring them down to our area. A lot of times it's through a rotation request. They're wanting to come and spend 20 hours or 40 hours with a certain specialty. And a lot of times with that, if they're from Macon or Augusta or Atlanta, we've got to figure out how to house them. We have a whole housing component. You know, how many rooms are in this house, you know, and fixing it to where you can't mix a male and a female in the same room. I mean, there's a lot of details when you're thinking about what we used to do on paper on Excel documents. Another big one is health career counseling, health career programs, marketing, presentations. This is every age group from K through 12 to college, to those non-traditional students like myself. Whenever I went back to school, trying to decide, maybe they were in a field of, maybe they were an engineer and now they're out of work and they want to get into healthcare. I mean, it's just a wide variety. Survey responses, that sounds a little vague, but what this is, whenever we have funders of any kind, whether it's federal or state or grantors, maybe it's a foundation that has said, okay, I'm going to give you X, but I want some data from X. I want you to ask these specific questions. The system that we build, you can add those in, and our administrator person in office knows how to go in and adjust those. Because sometimes the state or the federal government, wants something one year, and the next year they want to tweak it and say, I'm not interested in that question, but I want this question answered. So you do have that ability to be able to change on site. Also, there's an executive app, because there's certain areas that only an administrator or only maybe the center director or executive director needs to have access to. A lot of that is, some of these on this slide here, we have started trying to use. We're not as actively using as on the previous slide because these came in the later phases, and as I said before, the other slide was our bread and butter. That was what we were actually doing day to day for our service area. You'll see that there is a grant option to where you can put in grant information, track your paperwork, set deadlines, consulting, housing, volunteer jobs, volunteer management. Y'all will probably be using a lot of volunteer management, marketing, and Learning Resource Center. So that's just an overview of sort of what we have been able to do. And now we're going to turn it over to Joe. Joe's going to sort of show us. He's the brainchild behind the data management. He and his group has been great with being able to say, this is what we do, and transforming it into the data.
Hello, everyone. Let's switch out here real quick. But we definitely want this session to be interactive. So as we're going through some of the demos of the applications, we definitely want you to ask questions. Feel free to help us guide you through your questions and the details that you want to actually find out from the session. As Michelle was saying when she first started, and James mentioned it as well, that requirements is pretty much the key to any successful project. And I really feel that TechBridge and our relationship with TechBridge make sure that that's a key piece of what we do for our clients. We want to make sure that we have that full list of items that you want to be delivered in your application. As Michelle was mentioning, she listed off a bunch of different modules, as you saw there. And we would have not gotten close to half of those if we didn't go through that full-blown requirement session with them. And then we still missed them. We still got to the end and we was like, well, how do you guys do this? Yeah, I forgot about that. Because there's things that you do in the background on somebody's spreadsheet, on some computer in the corner, that you need probably once a year. And that information is important for you to have. But we can take a quick second and get connected.
I'll actually add a couple things about how the type of project works. So when we come to an engagement, we typically have, hopefully, about 80% of it already built, right? Because based upon the work we've done with the other nonprofits. So every time we do an implementation, we harvest what's generic out of that, and we have that in our toolkit for the next nonprofit. So we've got several different donor management systems, several different volunteer management systems. But when we come in and meet in your environment, we are the nonprofit business analysts, if you will. So we'll sit down with you and say, what is your process? And if this type of solution is going to be right for you, then we have the bulk of it. If not, then there's probably another system that might have the 80% in place or the 100% in place. But if this is appropriate for you, we figure out what the remaining 20% might be, and then we work with Joe's team, and he'll actually architect the solution and say, here's the actual changes that we need to make, and they'll implement those changes. And then together, we come back, we implement it for you, we train you on it, test it, make sure it's right, and then Michelle mentioned the enhancement requirements. request form. So ongoing, if you have needs, you can always go in there and enter what your needs may be, and then we can get back in touch with you and see how to address that. Does that answer your questions about, is there any questions about the nature of how we get this rolled out? Yes?
One question I had, because I anticipate in terms of switching over to new systems like Salesforce, revolves around migrating data, especially if you use a lot of the systems. Can you share a little bit about that, or in terms of how you'll be able to help with that?
A couple things. First is we typically say we don't own your data. It's very difficult for us to come in and say this is good data, this is bad data, merge these two pieces of data. So we show you how to clean your data, support you in cleaning your data,
But we ask that you own your data and you bring good data to the table, just because it doesn't work that well when we don't do it.
Now, as far as taking a good set of clean data and then loading that in, we'll take care of that. Absolutely. We'll get your data into the system.
That's a very key question.
Yeah.
From our lessons learned.
Yes.
And we'll probably talk about this in the lesson learned section, is that's an area that we're actually making adjustments to our implementations, just because of we've estimated a certain amount of time to import data. We're trying to get access to our clients' data much sooner than to the migration phase of that project, because we need to look at it, make sure it's matching up. We'll get some data at the toward the end of the phase of the project, and we'll look at some of those data points, and we didn't build those fields in the system because we forgot those on the requirements. So data is really, really important, as well as you're going to eventually want to report that same type of information that you have in the data that you're going to migrate over. So if you actually have a list of races, and in your data, in your format of your spreadsheet, you had in your old system white, and in your new system you put Caucasian. Well, that needs to be massaged before we load that in. If not, you're going to have a mess when you try to do your reporting. So those are things that are lessons learned from us that we have to spend. Sorry, we're going to take a week to do migration. 2 weeks later, we're just getting done because we have to go back and forth with the client, massaging this data. Because we don't know your data, and that's one of the things when we set up the contract. You're responsible for your data. We'll guide you and help you systematically get it in the system in the format that we built your application. Just a quick note, all up by exactly. Okay. I'm Joe Harris. I'm one of the principals at IT Savvy. We're a for-profit company. We're working with a lot of nonprofits. I've worked in the corporate world for about 15 years in IT and finance and audit and all different places. And I started volunteering with TechBridge, and you get that good feeling. I've worked with some larger companies and we do these big projects, and they're waiting for the next thing. They barely get a pat on the back. But working with TechBridge and working with the nonprofits, they're in need of some technology. They don't have the budget for the technology, and me and my partners put this team together to be able to work with TechBridge and other nonprofits as well to be able to provide a low-cost implementation for Salesforce products. We believe Salesforce, so we're putting all our dimes in one hat with Salesforce right now, because we believe in that product, we believe in the cloud-based system that they have, as well as what they give back to the nonprofits. They give the 10 free licenses. Those licenses can cost up to $1,500. So you're getting a $15,000 donation from Salesforce per year, because they charge the private companies that amount per year per license. So that's something that we feel that it's very difficult for you to get a product like this without the Salesforce Foundation giving that license fee away. What we try to come in and do is keep that cost low. You already got the license for free, and then provide the implementation with the requirement sessions that TechBridge helps us manage and build it. We try to keep our costs low for TechBridge, which again keeps your costs low. And the way we do that is we actually have a training program, and we have some trainees that are working with us. So some of the easier configuration and development that we're doing, we're working with them to actually get that done. That keeps our costs low. There are times when we deal with clients that have very difficult requirements, and we'll have to bring in our developers that are more skilled and experienced, and we sometimes have a blended rate. So just a little bit about IT Savvy. We'll go ahead and jump into this, but Cheryl, you're going to be helping me with this. This is Adams, as they call it. Took me a while to get used to it. I kept on all the calls, kept calling Salesforce, and they were correcting me Adams. So as she was mentioning earlier, she was talking about all the different tabs across the top of the modules that they manage. So you have your contacts, your organizations, your rotation requests, education, donors, grants, and what we've done and what Salesforce can do is actually group different tabs, which are different little modules, together. So if you have a sizable organization and you have these 4 people actually managing X and these people managing Y, and then you have some of the managers of the whole entire organization need access to everything. On the top right-hand corner here, you have different, we call these applications or apps. So we break that down because they have certain people that their job is clinical training. And when they go to clinical training, they don't get a full long list of tasks. They get the tasks that they're responsible for. They can get to the other tasks by clicking the plus, but it just shows the ones that they're in the majority of the time. We can go over to health careers. The health careers will just show up the career counseling, the health career programs, and the marketing that they do on those health careers. So that just allows us to, volunteer management actually pulls up the volunteer items. I think they have one person that's managing volunteers, or I think all of you manage volunteers, but it just allows you to group those different tabs on a particular page so you can manage that information at that time. Wanted to also talk about the delivery in different phases. The Sawega project was very challenging, just because this is one of our larger projects, first large project that we did with TechBridge, and we broke it down into phases. As Michelle mentioned, we didn't get to continue ed for you. We didn't get to continue ed until I think phase 3. So phase 1 was contacts, organizations, and rotations. That was the bread and butter that they wanted to make sure was built correctly, so we started with that. We built that, we allowed them to go in and actually start testing and using the application, and then we moved on to the next phase. Once that got approved, we moved on to the next phase. Not every project is done that way. It's based on, we saw as many modules you had. If we had built all those out and said, all right, let's go live, their heads would have been spinning because it was so much, and we kind of baby stepped them into using Salesforce and all the different modules that we had. There's a few organizations that have very few modules that they want to track. They want to track organizations, contacts, the relationship between those two, and donations. That's something that you can probably go live with all at the same time to make sure we have the appropriate training and documentation for you when we do that. But in Sawega's case, we actually broke it down into small chunks, and it made it a lot better because we had our clients, we tried to make sure that when we're going through testing, that they're actually involved. We'll build that particular module, and then we'll have like a week worth of testing, and each day we'll actually go through and say, okay, this is the first day of testing, we're going to go through contacts. I'm going to show you how contacts work. Now go test the rest of the day. And then the next day we're going to say, all right, what did you learn? How did you feel about that? What's different about what you saw? Here's the documentation, and talk about that. And whatever problems they have, they actually have that enhancement request tab. I don't know if you remember seeing that one that we had up there. They actually would type in, had a problem with this pick list value. It didn't have all the fields in it. And they'll put that in, they'll email my team, we'll correct it before the next day we get on the call. So it just keeps it really fluent that we're working directly with that client. They're getting hands-on. Because we get to the end, and I've experienced this in other projects, you get to the end, and they almost forgot pretty much what the requirements were, as you're building it, and they're involved in it, and they feel more like they're actually contributing to the product. And we definitely suggest that. I know James and his team, when they're getting requirements from you, they're not just going to get it from the executive or management team. They're going to get it from the individuals who actually do it every day. Those are the ones who really know it. Those are the ones who, have those different fields that James was talking about and earlier on those different spreadsheets to be able to manage that data. We need to understand that so we can build it.
And is Joe, can y'all see this okay? I know the text is kind of small. You may want to move up a little bit because he's about to go into some rather detail here.
Joe, if I can interject, the testing phase is critical. You can't have someone build something for you and wait until it's all finished and done and say, well, we have that system, why aren't you using it? You have to test it as they start putting the modules out, because it's going to help you with your learning curve whenever it's all done, but you want to be able to see where your data is going and making sure that all the data is connecting to the right places so that it makes sense to you, because if you wait all the way to the end, it could be like a bowl of spaghetti of why doesn't this match with this and how come this is that? You have to put that testing time in, and because they can only build what we tell them that we do, but you've got to make sure that they understand what you actually do, because sometimes how you're presenting what you do isn't actually really maybe how the process flow works. So the
Right.
testing is critical.
Yeah, and a lot of times, as you mentioned, with the requirements that you ask for, we might solution it to get to the end result of that requirement, but it might not be what you had in your mind. And we get that a lot. You know, somebody wants to kind of see, I want this in fact almost like a spreadsheet. Well, why? Is it getting you what you need? Is it getting you that report? Does it have to be in a proper flow or in a style sheet like a spreadsheet? So we will actually give options when we run into those type of situations and say, okay, you can get it this way, that's pretty configurable within the price line, or we can do it this way and get very custom and build whatever you want. Time and money, you can build whatever you want. Salt can over here.
Yeah, my understanding is Salesforce has a nonprofit starter package. Did you guys start with that to build on top of it, or was it something that you did the blank sheet of paper first and then you started from ground up?
It depends on the requirement section. If that requirement section, we come out and you have a lot of those same requirements that the non-starter package actually satisfies, we'll start off with the non-starter package, the nonprofit non-starter package, and then add on the rest of the requirements that you have. In their case, they're so customized, you know, we didn't go with that because we wanted the core Salesforce modules, and we just built on top of those.
And then I also know there's this huge, wonderful community that has like these third-party applications, and if like making donuts with sprinkles, there's an app for that,
Yep.
you know. And so, I mean, how does that still work well with what was created?
It does. And what you're talking about in Salesforce world is called the App Exchange. It's pretty much just like the Apple Store. You know, you go out and actually add a plugin. Here you can say add an App Exchange app.
It's funny, my everything's moving this way. Even my car has the ability to add apps to it. Really, I found that out this morning.
Yeah.
So,
You have a nice car.
Yeah.
Is there app
It's a
for free
Microsoft
gas?
computer.
Is it buy gas?
It doesn't work all the time. After I had an app. So our goal is to make the product fit your needs and be as low cost as possible, right? That's what we do. So what we don't recommend is I found an app, we're going to download it, and we're going to enter all our data and use this, and we're off to the races, we're good to go. We still say start with that requirements gathering. You know, understand what your requirements are. Then let's keep an open mind around what's the right tool. And we'll bring our expertise to the table about, based upon the requirements we saw, based upon the other options available in the marketplace, this is what we recommend. What might be an app we downloaded, it might be something that we built with IT Savvy, it might be a Salesforce volunteer, right? It might be a totally different package. But we will look at these options based upon our experience. Obviously, we don't know every single app out there, but this is one of the first things that we look at if we think it's already been built. Do you agree with that, Joe?
I agree. So it does have a lot of different apps out there. Most are paid apps. They do actually discount them for nonprofits. So, and like James said, it's very specific. You know, you might have this one app that does this one thing, but it doesn't fit all your needs. So we can actually help you through that process of actually deciding what you need based on your requirements and available. Okay. Any other questions before I kind of jump in to show a little bit how the system works, or at least how Solution was configured? All right. Well, the way Suica works, and what I'm going to do is actually do kind of a day in the life of a student that went on a rotation, and then we'll actually do a preceptor that actually went to a event. Okay, and maybe you can actually probably speak the terminology better than I do, and I'll drive.
You're good, you're good.
So here we have a list of all the different students. Some of these functions here, like for example, this one here, this is called a list view. And this list view allows you to actually ad hoc almost create kind of little reports of your data. So here we created one called all preceptors. And preceptors are?
Preceptors are those healthcare professionals that are willing to take a student on and let them watch, participate in the healthcare process of whatever facility that they're at. They're our gold mine of volunteer clinical faculty in our area.
So this allows you to quickly be able to, and this is not a admin function, this is a function that your users will have access to if they have the application, is they can actually create their own list view and choose the fields that they want in that list view. So you get any ad hoc request every once in a while, you can actually put that together and be able to see that information. It's not a report, it's just a list view on the data that's in contacts and contacts only. Later we'll show you some reports where you can mix your contacts and your rotations and your farmer programs with your organizations and on, but this is just data in that one contact section. So, yeah.
Can users also create custom fields, or do they have to go through you?
The admin person at our organization can customize certain things and they can add things to pick lists, and they have more extensive training in the reporting. Usually, well, that's the way Joe Dan explained it, is one person needs to be directly trained on how to do some of those extra functions.
Right.
Yeah, that's part of what we do, is we spend some time with you doing some light training in terms of showing you how to make pretty easy modifications. I mean, for the most part, you know, if you want to create a whole new module, that's where you're not going to reach out for outside help. But, you know, like Michelle said, adding a field, changing something on the drop down, all that's pretty straightforward.
Okay, so this is your list view. You can quickly see, you know, information, and if I click edit here, I'm editing this list view. And all they're saying is they want this particular contact type that includes preceptor in the list. So you're filtering all your data to get that particular type of list. I'm hitting new contact, and the way we kind of set up Swing is there's required fields that they wanted to actually have there that, you know, they can't move forward without saving that record. They have to put that information in. So contact type is one of their key fields, because you can, over a life cycle of the people that they work with, can become a student, and after they graduate, they can actually become a professional and then actually get involved in their program and be a preceptor. So in their case, you know, we have a multi-select pick list that you can actually add on, you know, multiple selections for the type of record that is. Last name is always required on the contact, and as you can see, they have, you know, a bunch of different information that they're tracking on these individuals.
Joe, can I interject something here? Whenever you're cleaning your data for your contacts, whenever you're trying to merge all the different access or whatever that you're using, you may have someone like, I may be in your system as Michelle Husky in one system, but in another system I may be D. Michelle Husky, and in another one I may be Dory Michelle Husky. So keep in mind, whenever you're merging even contacts or even organizations, they all need to be spelled the same way. You'd be surprised how I's and E's get mixed up, or if you have a period somewhere. But just keep that in mind whenever you're cleaning your data up with your contacts. Because otherwise you'll have all three of those in there, and you'll be going, well, but they're the same person. And there are ways to merge if a duplicate gets put in there, but take the time to clean up everything.
Right. And there is a function to actually merge. If you do find a duplicate, you can take J. Harris and Joe Harris, put those beside each other, grab the information that's current on each, hit save, and it'll actually merge that into one record. And all the associated other records to that is now on that one record. So it's a pretty smart application to do all that. It's already built in, those are standard functionality with the application. All right. Well, I'm kind of move on. Let's, do you have the Adams test one? Does it still exist? The Adams test user? I just did that search, I typed it in and hit search, and if it was the only thing that I found, you can get a list of, if I type in Joe, I'll get a list of a bunch of different Joes in the system, and I can choose which one fits. And actually, let me just do that. So I can choose between which one is the one I'm looking for. I can choose that guy, and that's the one I was looking for, but I wasn't looking for that right now. Now, if it finds a perfect match, it's going to pull that record directly up.
It's a little different than how traditional software works, right? Where if you're wanting to look up a donor, you go find the donor screen, you go enter in some information about the donor pops up. So the way this works and similar systems work is it's like Google type searching, right? I don't know if they're a donor, I don't know if they're a volunteer, I don't know if they're all of the above. I just want to go find James. Anything that's James, you type it in and you'll get a list of everything in the system that's associated.
The more you type in, the smaller your result set. The less you type in, the larger your result set. So we have this student here, and this is a fictitious student. We want to script their nice data. We're going to put in a rotation request, and as you can see, you have a lot of links here at the top. Basically, I'm going to scroll to the bottom, and this is where those links live. These are called related lists. These are related tables that have information that's related to this contact. So we can actually enter in their education, which school they actually goes to, and if they actually go to multiple schools, we can have multiple records of their different schools and when they graduated. Here's their rotation. So they had a rotation in August. We can put in multiple rotations. If they actually attended an event, you can see that they attended an event directly right off of their contact record. Farm worker program, any other organizations and affiliations they're related to. This is pretty long. I mean, this is not the norm of other nonprofits that we work with. They just have a lot of things that their particular contacts are actually involved in and can be involved in. So as you can see, it keeps going on and on. You have donations, donations that individual gives back. You can see all that information tracked directly here on their contact record. So that's the bottom of the screen. At the top of the screen, Salesforce has a nice little hover where you can actually just hover and you'll see the number of how many is actually there. So in this case, they actually had a rotation. You'll see the student name automatically pulls over. And you have their details about this specific rotation that can be entered. Again, this is fictitious data. And they have a housing module as well where they actually will place this individual in a particular house. So it can go on and on how far you build out the specifics of how you want to manage your data and your process. Okay, questions? I like questions. I like sitting here talking. Yes.
In most some databases, you can find access. Do that because who's got authority to look at.
Yes, great question. They have all types of security levels. We pretty much call them profiles, where if a particular person has, let's say, a continuing education profile, she can only see those tabs and the data in those. That also goes along with the reporting. So if I only can see certain information, that's all I can see when I actually do reports as well. We also have field level and screen level security. So I can lock down a field and no one can actually change it except for an administrator. I can lock down a field that's locked down, no one can make a change to it. And then on a particular page, and I'm actually going to flip over to a different organization. And this is North Fulton Community Charities. They actually call their application Simba. I can't remember that acronym. This is too long. They call their application Simba, and the way they actually do things, I want to show you the quick little difference between the two and how you can actually configure your application. When I click New here, I get the screen to enter a new record, correct? In their application, they call contacts intake. So they actually changed the name of the tabs, and they changed it and said, we want to call intake because that's our terminology in our office. This is the same purple tab, and we just changed the name of it to intake, and it has all the same functionality.
As far as the tab where you could insert all the information on a certain contact, is there a way that you can have like a forward-facing form for a volunteer to say sign up themselves, put all their information in?
Yes, I'll say yes, and I'll talk about that in a second, okay? Okay, so when I hit new in Simba, they get a selection. They have different types of contacts that they want to enter in, and they want to separate them into different groups because they have certain information on their screen that another one doesn't. So if I'm a community participant, and that's the person I'm entering into the system, if I hit continue, as you can see here, there's only very little information that they want to actually capture on a community participant. That's just somebody that's actually, participating in one of their events. They just want to track who they are and their contact information, right? If it's a actual household that they're tracking, there's all types of information that they want to track. So these are it's the same table, just two different pages presented based off the type of contact that's there.
There was no changes to the object model at all?
No changes to the object model. All we did was on that page, we created two different pages and said, if this was community participant, you get this page. And we put those 4 fields on it. And if it's the client or household, we're going to create this page and it has all this information on it. So we can actually manage that. We call it record types. That their intake process has multiple record types when they click new. And that allows them to actually go through that process. So here we have an individual constituent, and that individual constituent, they manage completely different than they do their households. I mean, they have households and household members that are associated to those households.
When you're putting this up, can you put in multiple addresses and select the primary address, almost like you do with an Outlook contact, and so you can select their primary? Is that something where you can put in backups and identify them, so you can do a query for home versus business?
If that's a requirement, yes, we can build that. And those are just custom fields that we will build to make sure it's on that particular page, like I just mentioned. Got her real quick.
This may be less relevant in these particular databases, but I wonder about the relational piece. If you're linking volunteers to a specific client, what kind of case management aspect, how easy that is within this, sort of link kinds of contacts to each other for this purposes.
Okay. I can show you that real quick, and then let's get your questions. See if this is
Okay, so if you have 2 different ways you engage with someone, so first you put them in as a household, but later they donate to your organization. So then you want to put them in as a donor. Will the information, if you type in the same name, will that donor information go onto the same spot? So you can, when you look at the person now, you'll see that they were a household as well as a donor?
But one, you only want to put them in one time. You only want to put them in one time, so there's one instance of a person in the system. And there's a couple ways of doing that. There's a couple of tools called like Duke Blocker is one of them, which you mentioned the app exchange. We actually download that for some of our clients, but actually when they actually type in someone that's already in the system and they hit save, it says, hey, Joe Harris is already in here. You want to move on. You can continue, but it will actually warn you. So you want to try to make sure that you keep your data integrity clean by not putting duplicates in. And as you can see here, I have this constituent, and that constituent can actually be part of the food drive, part of any donations that he offered or give. We can track that. He's actually already volunteered, and we got that he's put in 13 hours. So you can actually, and he's actually provided community service. So there's a lot of different modules, and that kind of goes back to your question over here on the left, the relationships. These are those relationships that you're actually building between this individual, the contact, which is going to be the source of your information, to the different servicings and that you offer. Does that make sense? Or?
Yeah, but I want to be able to link them to another person.
Okay.
That volunteer is the attorney for, in my case, is that client.
Okay.
Similar to like our preceptors, like them to.
Right, and SIPA has the same thing, where here they say, here we have an individual constituent, and they call that a person that they're working with that might volunteer or do some things, and they want to track that they have a constituent contact. Actually, I think the preceptor thing might be easier to explain.
In Michelle's situation, you might have a preceptor. We have Joel here. Joel is a preceptor, and I'm sorry, what's a preceptor?
Preceptor is a healthcare professional that's taking a student of ours. So we want to monitor the student plus that relationship with the preceptor so that when we pull data, we can say this preceptor has precepted this number of students, this many hours, and which site that preceptor was at. So we're able to drill down for that student that they went to site X with such and such a preceptor this week, and next week it was the same preceptor but at a different site. So you can multi-tag things together for that relationship where you see it all on one screen. That's sort of why we built it, where you see everything together on ours instead of different pages, because we wanted to be able to see all that together.
So in their situation, what they did was they here have this organization affiliations. This particular preceptor is associated to this hospital here. And we actually created a small relationship table that actually joined those two together. That's pretty how much we handle that. But you can associate organizations to contacts. We put an organization as like Home Depot, and then you have all the people that work for Home Depot as contacts associated.
So the whole idea here is you can go to Joey's record and see all the touch points you have with that individual. And so having all that data in one central place is extremely powerful. Because once you have it here, the reporting on it is phenomenal. You can easily get to it.
And the one probably different aspect, and I think I have it on the slide later, is we think in previous terms is as we're chasing a student, this is a lot really more organization driven, because that way you can tag multiple people to multiple organizations and see a more clear picture. So, and we had to adjust to that because we kept going, no, it's contact, it's contact. We are chasing contacts, but the relationship with that contact with all these other organizations is what we want to know.
The way North Fulton kind of set theirs up, and their model is very different than Sawega's. That's why I wanted to kind of show the two, where North Fulton Community Charities, they deal with households, and those households have members in those households. So basically, the way it's kind of set up, and the way we set theirs up is if I go to this particular household, I'll see this household here, and it has their base information about that household. And if I come up here and hover, I see the 5 household members that are being tracked. And you can see that they're still currently living in the household, their age, their date of birth, their gender. And these are all the information that they have to report on to the organizations that are providing them funding. And so this is very key to reporting. Another lessons learned is, we would love when we talk to our clients is actually get the reporting requirements as we're getting the system requirements. Because if you don't know what to build to actually get out of the system. Good data in is good data out, and we need to make sure that we have and build the object model the right way to be able to get that data out. So that's a very important area that will change.
Yeah, just for example, so now you have this client information in here, and let's say Gabrielle decided to volunteer. Then you would go to volunteer, you would type in the name, and he would already be there. You capture the information, and you have it all.
And the other thing about North Fulton is they actually provide food, clothing, financial assistance to people that are in need, and they come there and they sign up as a client, and then they work with them. They give them actually a counselor, and that counselor will work with them and try to get them back on their feet. And we actually are tracking all the different assistances that they actually provide to each one. And again, this is the bread and butter of what they have to report on to continue to get funding from different organizations. So we will easily be able to track that information. That's what this assistance link is. They also have a thrift shop. They can actually, once they go see a caseworker can give them kind of a coupon to go to a thrift shop and get so much worth of clothing, and the thrift shop actually tracks that. So they can, at the end of the year, say we provided X amount of dollars or X amount of items in clothing, shoes to to these individuals. So it's really key to data management, you know, having that part of your process to kind of walk through those steps. Process flows are great for us when we're actually trying to do the requirements and build out, you know, of the application. Because we don't want to change the process. We just want the system to actually enhance it. And if we can actually make these tabs and flow the way your process actually goes, we're going to definitely do that. One thing we did, and tell you a little story about this project, and then I'll move on to showing you some of the dashboards and reports. We got to the FCC and we kind of got all the requirements. We started to build, and something didn't feel right. One of my teammates actually came in, and we were actually sitting down and getting ready to get some training documentation set up. And she was new to the project. She used to start asking questions. And while she was there, we actually saw a member of one of our church at the center. She talked to her and said, you know what's going on, and she told her she needs some financial assistance, and that's what she was there for. And she said, well, you know, line's pretty long. How long are you going to be here? She said, well, I did this before, and you know, I got here at 9, and we didn't get out of here until 2 o'clock. So she told me that, and I'm like, something's wrong with that process, you know, because the room wasn't that packed. I mean, about the amount of people we had in here, and it just took that long for her to see a caseworker to understand what type of financial assistance she needs. So we dug into that problem, or we thought it was a problem, which is like, I wouldn't want to sit there that long just to, when it doesn't look like I have to sit there that long. So we actually went through that process, talked to the business, and said, what are you doing? How do you go back and forth? How do you actually manage those individuals sitting out in the waiting room? It's first in, first out. You know, so if somebody comes in and they want food, the person that wants, you know, financial assistance has to wait until the person with food goes, and the person with food behind the financial assistance has to wait until the financial assistance person goes, they get food. So somebody coming there for food can actually wait 3 hours because they're waiting for someone behind them. So we kind of try to say, let's try to see if we can fix this problem. So what we did is we actually built a module in Salesforce that allows them that when they come up to the front desk, when they first check in, we actually have a client visit. So we want actually the programming director actually wanted to also see this metric as well. She said, I know how many people I'm giving assistance to. How many are visiting that we don't give assistance to, or just walk out, or I want to see everybody walk in my door and actually come up to the desk. I want to track that they're in the system. We're working and somebody's actually managing that. So that allowed them to, you know, have this list here. We created a list view and we said today's visitors. I can click that list view and it'll go to it. And this is actually today. As you can already see, they had 25 people there and they opened their doors, I think, at 8:30. So they already had 25 people actually come up to that desk and they actually sign them in. On the right-hand side here, we actually allow them to be able to sort this to come in, what's your primary reason for being here? If their primary reason for being here is food, we're going to put you in this line. And we can actually get the pantry runners to actually start that process and get the food people out. In the past, they had paper files, and they had, when the caseworkers actually saw anyone that needed financial assistance, the person at the front desk would go run back, grab the file, bring that up front, review the file, make sure anything was missing, take it back to the caseworker, and the caseworker will come out and call that person down. So you can imagine how much time can elapse in between there with interruptions and everything else. So now the caseworker can actually review that file in the system. They click on that individual, has all their information, how many assistants they actually have had, how many times they've been to the thrift shop. They have some little rules that you can't get assistance so many times after a certain period, and they can look at that information and be prepared when that person walks in. So now they don't have to actually get that file. They have the information right there at their desk. And let me go back to client visit. They have their own list view called the caseworker list view. So for anybody that came in today, here's all the people that need financial assistance. So 17 of the 25 that came in need some type of caseworker involvement. And they can actually look at that individual household and work that process with them. We actually started measuring that time frame, and it went from Tuesday, which is the day that they have a line around the door, clearing out that waiting room around 3 o'clock normally, and it's down to about 11:30. So really improved their process, their efficiency, It was a struggle with their volunteers because they use a lot of volunteers to actually enter stuff in the system and manage that. So we had several training sessions with them. Plus, it was over a longer period of time because they would have a volunteer coming on Monday and Wednesday, and then another volunteer coming on Tuesday. That's it. So we only had to fit them in that day. We're trying to corral them all together at one time to give them the proper training. It took a good month and a half, almost 2 months, for them to start feeling comfortable with the application. They did put a couple more people on staff to kind of monitor them until they felt comfortable with it. All right, questions? Yeah.
For those of us that are homeless service providers in this room, I notice that says Pathways ID. Is that the Pathways system that we're used to? So for North Fulton, did they link all of their Pathways data to this system?
They're not, this is just for documentation purposes. They're not interconnected. So we've been talking with Pathways for quite a while now, Tommy Phillips and I, about ways that we can work closer together. But for now,
they've gone to the Pathway system, gotten the ID number, and typed it.
Right. Yeah, it's still double entry.
But we do have a Pathways report. So if anybody that's in their system that doesn't have a Pathways number, they can print that, take it over to that system, and quickly key it in. So it's not on paper or anything. It's on a report. It has all the fields that they want to key in the same order that they key in on the Pathways system. They can quickly get that number and then come back here. Because if they need to report on anything that need a Pathways number, they can pull that into a report. Okay. It's all yours first.
In the example you just gave us about the client visit option, is there a way, I guess this relates to the question that he asked earlier about having the clients actually fill that form out versus having the volunteers do it or the staff to have to do that. So when a client comes to the door, they tell you what they're asking, what they need by filling in the form themselves.
A couple ways of doing that. It depends on how you handle that, as well as the budget to the project. We can actually create an online form that when they actually enter that information in and they hit save, it'll actually create a new record in Salesforce. The only risk there is it might create a duplicate. We'll have to clean that duplicate up later if that individual's already been there before. I mean, I'm not sure I understand how your business works, but in their case, they actually tried that. Didn't work too well. They actually put 3 computers out front. It just got bum rushed, and it kind of created more chaos than it did by them actually truly managing that process. Where we could actually create a profile that's very limited in what you can do. Maybe it has one tab, and they go in and they put their information, hit save, their information's there, and someone in the back can actually see that information and call them from. That's one of our options, actually, to North Fulton, is for them to have to enter that information, and then somebody sitting behind the desk, it pops up for them that once that's there, and then they actually provide them service at that point. But we try to give you all types of options, let you decide based on your budget and time frame. Good.
I was just curious, you've got the social network icons underneath the name. How would those be used in this kind of
situation? Salesforce has a lot of different social networking integration that's already pretty much built in. So if you're actually already linked to this individual, you can actually go and see their LinkedIn profile. It'll use your email address in the system and their information that you capture to try to link to their social networking. And if it's there, you can actually connect to that, and that's a standard function within Salesforce. It's very basic. Salesforce has, of course, additional licensing that you can purchase, and you get a whole lot of social networking type of stuff that's out there. We haven't built that for anyone or really gone into that detail with any of our clients yet. Yes.
What has been your experience in taking this and relating it to forcing your managers out in the field, having to obtain instant information about messaging, telephony? I mean, all these lines are blurred these days in terms of what does what. But, for example, we have people who are in the field all the time, and they need sometimes instantaneous information. Client calls in with a problem, or family member calls in with a problem, or we have to search the welfare of the client. So what has been your experience
online?
Right. There's email notifications. Salesforce has a mobile app that you can have access to, and that comes with your license. You can check the box for mobile if that individual needs access to the mobile. They can download the Salesforce app. You don't get all of the custom built modules, but you do get the base accounts and contacts, which is, in their case, intake in organizations. But you do get those, and if we know we have that, and that's a need, we'll make sure that we build those fields and things on that specific object so that they can be notified by email. So there's all types of things based on the requirement, that we can actually provide different solutions for.
Likewise, you have, we deal with systems that are also provided by local, county, regional, and federal government. And there's a lot of reminders, there's a lot of data exchange. It has to be done by faxes because it's not encrypted. And that sort of thing is becoming huge. And our experience has been that this is really nobody's going to break down at some point. So we're not going to make it happen. So recognizing that the other agency willingness to accept a data exchange is paramount, but at the same time, we're also looking for better ways to get to that information, get information from them, because right now it's just
And we're experiencing that too with some of the nonprofits that we're working with. Is the organization or government agency that they're working with, they're just a little behind the times. Most of them do have some type of FTP or integration that we can possibly build, but that would have to be build a relationship with them, sit down, have those meetings to really understand what can be done to help manage that data and move back and forth. Question right here. Oh, thanks. Sorry.
My question is about QuickBooks. A lot of nonprofits we work with use QuickBooks.
Mm-hmm.
So what if you're tracking in Salesforce, revenue that you earn from training events or value of services, and you need to get that information to QuickBooks to go with all your financial reporting that you give to your board or whoever? How do those, is there a link kind of between?
There's multiple links out there. A lot of the integration, the CAN integration applications that are out there for QuickBooks, there is a cost to it. Some of it's low cost and it's very low integration, and some of it's pretty big cost, but James, you probably talked about the Boom project we're working on right now to try it, and that's one of the areas of integration that we're looking at, because we keep running into it. A lot of nonprofits are using QuickBooks to manage their financials, and we can have an integration tool in place as part of our package, and that's one other thing that you can actually have benefit to your organization.
Intuit provides a version of QuickBooks that will integrate with Salesforce. It's a service that they sell, so that's one mechanism. What we're trying to do is provide a common integration platform across all applications so that you're not having to find one-offs every time and pay somebody for every single integration hook. We went to Dell. Dell bought a company called Boomi, and it's basically a cloud-based integration platform. And the ask of Dell Giving was that they give it to us for free for all nonprofits to use. They said no, but they did say, let's try it once and see how it goes. So we've tried that. It's going well. And we view that as now it's time to go back to Dell Giving and see if we can actually make a contribution that will make this available to all of our nonprofits to use. More work to do there, but we're working hard on trying to figure out what's a cost-effective integration platform, because all of us have it. We're always going to have the pathways. We're always going to have a special system that's unique to our mission because our donors ask us to use this system, and we need a good answer for that. And we think we're getting close.
And we've also seen clients where, anytime you're talking financials, and you talk about QuickBooks, they get nervous about any other system coming in and touching QuickBooks, right? I get nervous about it too. So there's always a manual way of doing it. So you could have data in Salesforce, run a report, and bring in that data in a manual process where you've got control of it. So that's another avenue.
You can actually attach that file. Now that file is actually attached, and I can view that file, I click in view, or you can see that that's there. Even down here at the bottom, save that, scan it in. If you have a file, you can actually attach it to a specific record in the system.
Multiple records. It could be a contact or a program or an organization. You could have that notes and attachments on any of those. So you may have a resume of a speaker that you want to do for a particular program. You can tag that to that individual speaker. You have to look them up over to a particular program.
And you can also track and log phone calls. There's an Outlook plugin, so if you email that you want to attach to a certain contact within Salesforce, there's that plugin has that connection between Outlook and Salesforce, and you can dump that email directly into Salesforce.
There's a lot to this. There's a lot. I would say open your thoughts to what it can do, and we'll bring it back in if we need to. But there's a lot of things that Salesforce can do standard. There's some things that we can build. Of course, it always depends on the budget that you have to invest in the technology. I'm almost out of time. I'm going to hit on a few reports and dashboards. The way Salesforce actually manages the reports, there's a reports tab, and basically we'll provide basic standard reports based off the requirements. And then there's dashboards. And dashboards are graphical views of the reports that you have already in your system. And just to show you a few and the different types of reports that we've actually can produce in dashboards, this org here is from Southbridge Christian Care. They're a hospice center, and they have a report that they have to actually present to their board on a quarterly basis. And this is all the information that they have to present. In the past, it took them 2 weeks to put this together in a spreadsheet to be able to present this, and we actually have it on a dashboard. They will know how many patients were actually served, how many patients are actually active or inactive currently, what are the different age groups, what counties did they come from, what was the gender and race mix, on down to even the diagnosis of what their specific issue was by even being at that hospice. They also were capturing the religious preferences. So as you can see, very specific data needs to be captured on that contact record to be able to produce this type of information. So good data in, good data out. So that's a key to our training when we're actually talking to our clients about it. If you want this information out, you have to get it in. We'll try to help you get it in a way that's close with your process.
It's also possible to have different dashboard elements based on the goal. So you may have an executive director that may have certain dashboards, while a staff member may see different dashboards.
Right. So in this particular page, it's a great point, John. Here we have a bunch of dashboards. They have different programs. They have a Hope House program, they have a hospice program, they have a senior care program. So we have a dashboard for each one of those. So each of the dashboards look similar, but the data is going to be different for each one. And certain people are looking at that data at different times.
And the important thing to remember about the dashboards is that's real-time data, right? So half an hour goes by, we refresh those dashboards, and you see that data, which is nice.
I got you this one. We just worked on that last night. This is Cool Girls is an organization that one of the TechBridge's clients that actually work with young girls. It's a great program, and they want to be able to see, which girls are in which programs, and they have goals that they actually want to track. How many girls? These are fictitious goals right now. We are not live yet. But we can put in a goal that they say they want 6 girls by the end of the year to be in the Cool Girls Club. And you can see that dial trying to reach to that goal. So imagine different types of metrics that you want to track and that information. You can see how close you are at a glance by just coming to this dashboard and seeing this information.
So assuming that money isn't an issue, which is never the case, how fast can you roll out a program or roll out a configured Salesforce database?
Depends on the requirements.
Of course. And that's why I said if money wasn't the issue.
Right. It really depends on the requirements. I'm going to just give you some different types of small organizations like Cool Girls. They didn't have a lot of tabs. They had those 4 tabs, and that was pretty much it. They want to track their individuals, they want to track which programs they're assigned to, and they want to track the cool sisters that's mentoring the cool girl. That's pretty much it. And they have some events that they want to actually track who actually attended. So very quick, within a month and a half, we were able to get the requirements, get it built, and we're at the point now where they're actually validating data migration. We just did over the last couple of days. They're validating data migration, and they'll be live within a 2-month period.
So 2 months to a year, maybe?
A year's awfully long.
Yeah, a year's long. I mean, we took Swega, a very large project. We started in November, December timeframe, and they went live live with everything. So we did those in chunks. So again, every project is a little bit different, where they can
How
work.
much data you have to bring over, how much time it's going to take your staff to clean up that data, to get it to them to migrate it up.
Right.
So when was it done? November to when?
We finished up in April. April was the, we had to get it done by TechBridge, digital ball.
Yeah.
But we did them in small chunks. You know, we did CE, then we did clinical training, and then we did, you know, all the way through until everybody's done.
I'd say that sounds about right, 2 to 6 months. If you're going over 6 months, maybe you're trying to do too much, right? You might be investing in things that are, think of that custom example I talked about. You know, if you're having to write a whole bunch of code in order to make all this work, you might want to revisit how you're approaching it.
One last dashboard, and then I'll introduce John real quick. This is one of the assistance centers that we did, and again, this is the specific information that they have to report on. As you can see here, you know, by month, all the individuals that they've seen for the first time, you can see their total numbers by month. We call this the duplicated, so if somebody came in multiple times, you know, that's their duplicated household that were seen in those two months. And they can actually look at, see those trends on certain months. You know, it really goes down when school starts. When the kids are out of school, you know, there's more food that they actually give out, because when they're at school, they have school lunches and things like that that, you know, help them throughout their day. Even here, you can see the type of assistance that they offer and the total numbers. And you got your donut here with your amount in the middle and your highlighted record types on the side here.
And you've got the power. You notice when Joe moused over that if you click on that, it takes you to the detail of that particular dashboard. So you can drill down into it.
And you can make any of this information public facing, I imagine?
You can put a web front end on this, so you can build, and also to your point about self-service. I want someone to come in and enter their own data. Anytime someone views this page, that means they logged in, which means they have a license. So if you have 1,000 clients and you want 1,000 people to come in and enter their own information, that's 1,000 licenses. Now, what you can do is you can set up a web front end so that you have a web page and people are logging into the web page and making updates. And then you have one license that's transferring information between the web page and the system. It depends what they're doing. If you're replicating all this on a web page, then you're probably violating the agreement. If you're having contact information, if you're having basic information on a web page, and you're just passing that back and forth, that would not violate the Salesforce license.
And you could also do snapshots too, right? So you could update it, you know, once a week, once a month, and put snapshots out there based on what you see here.
You mentioned reports, to make sure they're benefits of you should be able to customize their own reports.
Yes. And that is one of the benefits of Salesforce. I know John's trying to kick me off the stage here. One of the benefits of Salesforce is the reporting, to be able to modify the reports is very easy. And during our process, we actually go through a training and make sure that, you know, at least a good subset of the users know how to modify the base reports for the requirements that we actually create for you. Because it's key. I mean, we're not going to have all the answers when we're actually doing an application. More questions are going to come up from your executive team and your management team that we don't know those questions yet. So this is a basic report. I can hit customize,
staff can put on this report. See, here's all the individuals' names here. And like I said, I want to add application date to this. Just drag it over, and now I have application date. Or I want to put application status, double click, it puts the application status. I can run that, and that report's pretty much redesigned. But it's that simple. The complexity comes when you have to know that data. You know, all those data points in the data fields, what they do, how they track. You have to understand that to actually put those different filters in place, as well as have your, you know, here, this report is based off of the first contact. It's running for that organization's fiscal year. I can change that. I want to run it from this date to that date. You know, so quickly you can actually go in and actually run the different reports and the time frames of that data. You know, I just ran that. I didn't save it. So when somebody actually goes and looks at that report again, it's going to be the original that we pulled up. But at any time, I can ad hoc change date frames to get more data from this.
So that reporting module is very, very flexible. It literally is, it's drag and drop, and there's no coding, there's no anything like that. It's very, very flexible in terms of getting your data back out.
Lessons learned section.
The next couple of slides, we've already talked about several things that are on the slide. We're going to talk about thinking outside of the box, project champions that you're going to need, garbage in, garbage out about your data, looking toward the future. Thinking outside the box. You probably don't even realize that you yourself are probably in a box in your organization. You have certain duties that you have to do, certain things you're responsible for, and every probably person that works on your staff is probably in their own little box. For the data we were collecting from years ago, everybody had a different system that they were using. So everything that was going in was based on those individual systems. Whenever you think outside the box, you have to think about what other people are doing within the system to build the system the way that you want it to be. You have to consider flexibility. This is going to be one of those times that whenever you're invested in time with the key players that are going to be coming up with the requirements, that they'll be flexible. There are some hills worth dying over, and then some that aren't. You know, let's just be honest. You know, I may call something in one system. I may call a physician in my system, and John may call a physician in his system doctor. We need to come to a mutual understanding on what are we going to call it across the board. So, yeah, and that's an internal thing that comes through. So you have to build on flexibility. Project champions, with any kind of technology project or any kind of big project, you need to think of project champions. You got to have people at different levels that are willing to step up and say, this is important, this is our future going forward. You have to have stakeholders and board members. These are going to be key people that are interested in technology. There are also those key players that can bring funding to the table. Maybe their organization specifically. There may be a volunteer board member that's willing to put up money toward the customization of it. Or it may be that they're so gung-ho for it that they're saying, okay, next year we're going to put this as a line item in our budget, and we're going to say IT upgrades, and we're going to do the customization that way. So you need to have somebody at that level. The local administrator or management needs to be on board. The staff. When you think about all the different things that everybody does, one person can't build this system, because if only one person is not doing all the work. You got to have the administration part. Those people also that are responsible for reporting information out. You got to have those people that are actually doing the service, because they're doing it and they can relay back with the requirements everything that they're able to collect. Those collecting it, those entering it. You got to have that buy-in job, right?
Yeah, and to add to that, by involving the right people in the requirements gathering sessions, it also gives them ownership and buy-in into the system. And that's really important for your staff to have buy-in into the system.
There's nothing worse than one person saying, okay, this is the system we're going to use and we're going to force it down your throat. And they have no idea of how you do your job. It's not going to benefit the system. Of course, again, increasing or encouraging flexibility and being adaptable, garbage in, garbage out. We've already mentioned this earlier. The key points on this slide is a lot of times we think of data in the historical sense of what we've done last year. And our story has always been based on what we've done before. With this kind of system, it makes you push forward to think, well, what are we doing now? And what are we going to do in the future? So you got to think and stretch your mind a little bit about just because you've only collected 10 points of data, maybe you need to be collecting 15 to really tell your story better. Collect and organize the data. We've mentioned about cleaning up the data prior is really very important. Having that standard common terminology across all the different silos or all the different platforms is important. Brainstorming about potential future data tracking needs. That's where whenever we were going through the requirements, we realized a lot of key points that we were making touches with people or getting information, but because our old outdated system we didn't have that option to be able to add that in there, that is what our Atom system has brought to our table. It's been able to help us collect and track more of that data that we had, but we just didn't have nowhere to put it anywhere. It was on a piece of paper somewhere, or it was in a notebook somewhere, on a shelf. We also mentioned before that this is sort of an organizational platform, meaning that wherever anybody is, wherever they work, wherever they go to school, wherever organization they're tagged to, you need to be thinking of building it that way. So if you were going to enter me, you would want to say, okay, well, where do I work? I work at Sewicka AHEC. Is Sewicka AHEC in the system? Let's put Sewicka AHEC in. That way, anytime anybody else from Sewicka AHEC does anything within our organization, it gets tagged so that I could go in and say, Sewicka AHEC, put me everything down from there. Looking towards future outcomes. The most important thing probably on this slide is the very first one. And I almost just did the slide and only had that one. What is so important is build a system to tell your story. You're the only ones that can tell your story. You're the only ones that can convince a funder to keep funding you or a new funder to come to the table. So that's why you have to have that across the board with staff about what is going on, how can we do things better. If you build it to tell your story better, you're going to increase your viability, your sustainability, your capacity to be able to retrieve that data. Of course, you're going to have a short-term increased time commitment, but long-term, it's going to benefit you with efficiency and data accessibility. In this next slide, I always think of how accessible is your data. Is it tied to an antiquated system that you've got to drive 20 or 30 miles to work to get to it, or you people calling you, asking you things, and you're saying, well, whenever I get to the office tomorrow, but you know how the line of traffic is? It may be afternoon before I can get there. Our data now is accessible wherever our staff is. Wherever they may be, it is accessible to, and that's what Salesforce or Atom has brought to us. I'm going to let John go finish us up with lessons learned.
And we're getting short on time, so I'm going to fly through this. But I'm John Banning. I'm the Senior Manager in the Application Services Group over at TechBridge. And I implement a lot of the Salesforce.com projects as well as SharePoint 2010 projects. And what we've seen work really well, and we've talked about a lot of this already, so I'm just going to kind of fly through this, but it's really important to spend time on requirements. There are typically two phases that we completely separate. We do a requirements phase, and then after that we do a delivery or build phase based on those detailed requirements. For the requirements phase, it's critical that you basically gather requirements for all the modules. Even if your intention is to only roll out one or two of them based on your budget, at least you planned across the board and you gathered requirements across the board, and then you can, based on, what we do at that point is go back and give you pricing on individual modules, and you can plan and budget for it going forward, which helps a lot. During the delivery phase, it's important to obviously stay involved and do testing. Thorough testing is critical. You want to make sure you're happy with what you have and it's working correctly. It's also what we found, and it depends on the size of the nonprofit, but for any project we start, having a project charter is really important. And the project charter is comprised of all the different areas here, and it puts everyone on the same page. That way, everyone involved in the project knows everyone's role, what the purpose of the project is, how is it going to benefit the organization, how do you measure the outcomes, what's going to make the project a success in the end. That's really critical. For the detailed requirements, a lot of considerations go into it. Like I said, you want to define all the different modules that you want to track: volunteer, grant, donor management. You want to look at any workflows behind the scenes. What are the permissions and roles? We've talked about that. What reports do you want out of it? What is your data migration strategy? How are you planning on training the staff? How's that going to be rolled out? And also consider change management. What we see a lot of times is, and it's human nature, people don't like change. You might be dealing with 20 different spreadsheets, but you may have some people in the organization, they like that. They're comfortable with that. So getting them to change can be a little bit of a challenge. But it's worthwhile, I promise. Other considerations here involving data, and I think we've kind of beaten this one down, but basically, it goes back to what Michelle said: garbage in, garbage out. So it's really critical that your data be in really good shape once we bring that in Salesforce. And yes?
One more statement on just the data. We've had clients also just say, you know what, we're going to start fresh when we go live. We can go to our old system and get our historical information. So if data is a big mess and you know it's going to take a lot of time to clean up, or whatever your situation is, we've had people actually say, you know what, when we go live, we're starting fresh at that point in time.
And we actually just did that. We went from NetSuite, which is a cloud-based financial package, which is free for nonprofits, actually. So if you have that or are interested in that, I recommend you go to the NetSuite Foundation. It's complicated, though. And so we ended up switching from NetSuite to QuickBooks with the QuickBooks for Nonprofit version, which we felt like was better for us. And so we did that. We migrated our year's worth of data over. We've got 12 years of history. That's all in NetSuite, and we'll just keep it there. So there is options. So we'll see if there's questions. Real quick, just reminding about the takeaways that we talked in the beginning. What I would hope you take away from this is, I think we drilled it in, requirements are so important. Really understand what you need. Look at holistically across the different organizations that you have within your nonprofit, and really make sure you know what your requirements are. And only once you have that understanding, then start going in and mapping that to the options. And if you do that, if you invest that time up front, then you're going to make a great selection. You're going to have a product that works really well for you. If you do need to make modifications, they're going to be ones that are worth it and are going to work well for you. So that said, is there questions?
First, I'd like to know, can you integrate apps into Salesforce?
Maps. Have we done any map integration?
Yes.
You mean like a Google Maps or something like I want to click on them, their location pops up, that sort of thing?
Yes, there's some app exchanges out there. Some are paid, some are free.
And then the other thing I was going to ask about was, Michelle mentioned surveys, but didn't really go into it much. Do the surveys integrate with the apps? Because we do baseline assessments for households for energy efficiency. So that might be something that we can use to streamline our process.
Yeah, there's actually several survey tools out there as well that are integrated with Salesforce. So we just actually using their surveys. They're actually doing the surveys at the different courses that they offer, and they're coming back and actually keying that information in. So they can report on their survey data, they just don't have the web front or send that survey out to individuals and get that data back. But that is options that are out there for you.
And like SurveyMonkey and companies like that will have a Salesforce plugin if you want to take advantage of it. But there is some integration involved.
I thought that there was a marketing tab. Can you talk about what that looks like, or what type of features are available in marketing?
The marketing tab has it's called campaigns. The natural name from Salesforce, they call it campaigns. They renamed it to marketing. And what it does is just allows you to, with any of your e-blast, any of your tracking of what you're doing to actually market your business can be tracked against those individuals. So if you actually have a
an email blast that goes out, you know who those individuals are. You can actually add all your contacts that were listed on there as campaign members. So you have this campaign, you have these different members that you actually solicited on. And if they actually come to you and you provide them services after that, you can actually see what campaign actually influenced them to come to your organization. So it does have some functionality like that. Salesforce is not a campaign or marketing tool. They have some marketing functions. They don't pride themselves on actually having all the bells and whistles for marketing. They have a ton of app exchange and partners out there that actually does all types of crazy stuff you couldn't even imagine from the marketing standpoint.
It doesn't replace constant contact or anything, but the data that comes out of constant contact will be brought in for tracking within that campaign module.
They can do it automatically, or would you have to manually do it?
They have an API. We'll have to build that integration between Constant Contact and Salesforce.
What about Blackbaud?
There's not a, I've never seen an API with Blackbaud, but you know that would have to be more of a manual process if you're trying to integrate with Blackbaud.
Or the Boomi product. Boomi does have hooks into Razor's Edge and other Blackbaud products. So that's why we're hoping that we have this platform where they've spent all the time and energy to build all these hooks. And we just kind of use those as part of the toolkit to make the systems talk to each other. Yes?
The same question with donation software plugins, people are giving through greater giving, or any of the number of ways. How does that integrate?
Multiple options there as well. Some app exchange, some custom build that we can do to actually have a web front end where they actually do the pay.
Accept payments.
Accept payment through PayPal, and then we actually pull that information into the application, listing that individual with the donation record and what they paid.
Yes?
Not a question, but I'll just make two comments about the presentation today. First is, and I will shamelessly plug TechBridge, because I think they're a great organization. You know, when we set requirements, I think I counted 56 times today. And, let me just sort of give you my anecdotal view of that. First is, there's two types of people and requirements. One is, I know what I want, and the other is, I'll know it when I see it. And sometimes you need somebody to facilitate that thinking. That's why this has been said over and over and over again. So don't be shied off by, oh my God, I'm not going to go through all that work. Then the second thing I would tell you is, technology is kind of like cooking. I like to cook and garden. You know, gardening, I love to plant flowers, but that means you got to deadhead them, you got to do a lot of things. My son, he hates it. So he's got evergreens. He loves evergreens because there's zero maintenance. And with cooking, you know, when you bake, it's an exact science. Cooking, you sort of keep adding stuff until you like it. That's the way technology is. And so, as I heard the discussion up here, can it do the donation thing? Can it do this? Can it do that? Salesforce's claim to fame is they can do just about anything. It's just a matter of how you configure it. So when you listen to a presentation like this today, what I would encourage the nonprofit community to do is, these things are not easy. And there's a fear, oh, that's very expensive. You get what you invest. You do this for a living. You know if you invest a little time, you get a huge payout. And so I would say for TechBridge and Salesforce and people like IT Savvy, you really need to invest a little bit of time in these decisions. That's why they kept saying requirements. Forget about the word requirements. Invest. Just a little time, the back end will pay for itself. So I think it was a really great presentation from that standpoint.
Thank you, Greg. So I have two last things. One is if you want more information, you can contact John Banning. He was being very humble. He put senior manager, but actually come Monday of next week, he'll be director in charge of our consulting services. So we're very proud of John. And his email address is jbanning, and it's on a form that's been handed out. If you look in there, you'll see his business contact information. The other thing is we have a feedback form. And we really would like to have your feedback. If we did a good job of communicating, if this is worthwhile for you, then we'd like to know that. And if it wasn't, equally, we would like to know that so we can do a much better job next time. So I hope you had a good time. I hope you got something that was worthwhile, and thank you very much for